Learn how to create a delete button for every task and remove the task when the button is clicked. This is our first example of creating and attaching events to elements that are created dynamically with JavaScript. And in this example, every time a new task is added, we also want to create a delete button. Since the button doesn't exist in our original HTML, if you can see clearly in our HTML section, we currently don't have a delete button. So JavaScript has to create the button, add some text to it, listen for its click event, and remove the task when it is clicked. So that is our exercise for this particular lesson. Deleting. That is what we are looking at in this lesson. So looking closely at what we already have inside the script tag, we can just go ahead and start making changes so that we can see what needs to be done in this example. So let's just move on. Now, the first thing I want us to do is that I want us to move into the script tag. We already have a couple of things like selection of the ID of our HTML element, keyboard event, then the functions that triggers every time we try to add tasks, and the way to append what we have added on the screen. And so now that we have all of this, let's simply create a delete button, and we'll put that after the selection of tags here. So let's put create a delete button. And how do we create a button? Well, just like the way we created a new list element, that's the same way we are going to create this delete button. So let's make a variable and call it delete button. And you can then use the document dot create element. And what do we want to create? We want to create a button. So let's just pass what we want to create in button. And now that we have done this, so right now we are actually not seeing the button. So let's quickly go into our CSS and do a couple of things. So the way we would do that is that we move into our styles sheets, and after the last UL, let me add a style for the listing. And I basically just want to add margin bottom. I'll set it to something around 10 pixels. Also, I want to add style for a delete button. And for this button, let's give it a margin left. Say maybe 10 pixels. The width of auto. And lastly, a padding. And now it will be good to go. So let's go back into our script tag, and let's just continue with what we've been doing. So now that we have added a delete button, now that we have added a delete button using the create element in JavaScript, so let's look for how we can actually make this button to work. And how do you make it work? Well, in order to delete a task, we first need to add that task to our delete button the same way we added a task to our text content. And so we need to take the text content of whatever you want to delete and then use the delete button to delete it. So the way you do that is you call on your variable delete button dot text content. So this is going to is going to receive whatever you created in your what is it called in your task, and set this to a string of delete. Then call the delete button again and give it a class name of delete button, which we just typed in our CSS delete button. Now look at what I'm talking about. Can you see we just added a styles for this delete btn? It is what we just added here in our script tag. So we gave a class name to our delete button that we expected this create element in JavaScript to create. So once we have that, it is now time for us to you know, listen for delete click, just like the way we listen for click to be able to add tasks to our web page. So let's go ahead and uh, call on the delete button and add event listener in order to be able to listen for click. So once this button is clicked, then we need to pass in our function. And simply inside this function, let's just add a a property, remove to our listing element. So now you can see this is our delete button with attached to add event listener, and like you know that add event listener usually takes two parameters: a click event, what do you want to happen, an event and a function to run when that event is emitted. So in our case, when there is a click on that delete button, then what this function to run, and we simply just want this function to use the remove property in JavaScript to remove that element from the DOM. So with what we have now, let me go ahead and create a task going for vacation. Now I've successfully added my task. As you can see, but our button needs to come alive, so I need to inspect. So we now have to make a couple of changes here. Number one is we already have a delete button set, and we've been able to attach events now, but if we try to add a tags going for summer vacation, this is actually not going to do anything. You can say it's adding our tags, but there's no delete button. So let's go back into our script tag and let's look at a couple of things that we already have for this particular example. So let's just try and append to what we already have. So here we are appending a list item to our task list. So this allows us to display whatever we've added on the screen. So let's do the same thing for our button, for our delete button as well. So just call list dot append child method, and you can just pass in our delete button into it. And now let me go ahead create a task going for summer vacation, hard task, and now you can see the delete button. So I can just click on delete and then the task will disappear from the page. So now our to-do list app now remove task.